Dogs die in the cargo hold?
Occasionally.
And then they just replace them with a dog that looks similar. They got a big dog farm for these things, man. All the airlines share the same dog farm.
Dave, we need a Shih Tzu. Brown face, white feet. We need a Shih Tzu, gate C27.
It's a number 8.
Yeah.
Bring us that number 8.
Another newfie coming in on United. Try to take care of that.
Yeah, he's different aboard. Come on in.
Okay.
Pushing both the play and rewind buttons on one of the most iconic radio shows in broadcast history, The Bob and Tom Show. We hit play to share clips from our recent conversation with Tom Griswold. Then we push rewind and, well, you're just going to have to take a listen. A special episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC is next. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. We are approaching the 5-year anniversary of our podcast. The first guest, former IU football coach Tom Allen, back in February of 2021. We've produced more than 250 podcasts since then, our most recent with radio legend Tom Griswold of The Bob and Tom Show. You can check out all of them by going to applepodcast.com. This week, we bring you a special episode, which includes our conversation with Tom and interviews we've done over the years with many of the other cast of characters from the Bob and Tom Show. In terms of the evolution of the show, you and Bob, obviously, is kind of the stars of the show, if you will, but that supporting cast, the guys and gals you've had working on that show and do to this day, really amazing. The voices, the bits, the skits, all the different things. Talk about that and how, as you were talking to someone who wanted to be on the show, was interested in being on the show, was there something that made it fit, made a guest fit for being one of the players on the Bob and Tom Show?
For the most part, we got really lucky. I can remember Mark Patrick was actually working at a different radio station. And the management of that station, they were kind enough to give Mark permission to do some stuff with us. God bless Jeff Smulyan. That guy has an enlightened view of everything as far as I'm concerned. But Jeff and Rick over there at ENS, I guess it was at the time, said. So Mark started doing some stuff. He eventually came over full time. Mark would go on to become, of course, a TV, Channel 8. And Mark is also retired now. But Mark's voice talent's unbelievable. In fact, you'll like this story. Mark did many voices very well, including a killer Howard Cosell.
Yeah.
Just brilliant. So one day we called Jimmy Irsay, and we were on the phone with him, and he was doing Cosell, and Jimmy had no idea that it wasn't Howard himself. But Mark was great, and then a guy named Mark Much started doing some stuff with us. He was also super talented, great singer, opera singer. So before there was Opera Man on SNL, we had Luciano Gaspacho, and we did that song in praise of the Indianapolis Colts, which I just love that one. Bob Irsay took his team and began to roam. And then a guy named Ricky Rydell entered one of our contests. He's now one of my closest friends. We wrote songs together and still do. And then over the years, other guys came in. Ron Sexton, a brilliant guy, sadly gone. Ron did Donnie Baker and Floyd and some others. And then we also got connected with the comedy clubs here. When I moved here in 83, Crackers was right next to the Vogue and upstairs. And Crackers was just part of that early 80s comedy boom. And I can remember seeing Jerry Seinfeld there.
Wow.
Jay Leno, Gary Shandling, just some amazing guys that would go on to great things. So we got hooked up with another great comedy club started by Chick and Patty Perrin downtown, the Indianapolis Comedy Connection. And we had Tim Allen, who I just talked to, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, Brad Garrett, Brad Garrett is so funny, it's painful to be around him. if I'm not kidding, if he walked in right now, he would just take over the mics, and I would just walk out because he's so great. But Brad was on our show, and that was Brad exploded here in Indy. The first time he did a solo theater show and sold it out was at the Murat.
Wow. Yeah.
And so we were lucky enough to get connected to a bunch of great comedians over the years. I mean, the list goes on to guys that are, a lot of them are still, we just talked to Jeff Foxworthy, I want to say yesterday, Jim Gaffigan, a fellow Hoosier. So that was also helpful, besides the voices, having a lot of guests and also athletes. We, let me test your memory here. Do you remember who the primary quarterback was for the Colts in 80, I want to say 84, 85?
Okay, was that the Mike Pagel
Yes.
era?
Yes. Oh, you're a star. And here's some obscure Mike Pagel trivia.
Yeah.
His car, I think it might have been a Camaro. This isn't the good part. He had one of those vanity license plates. It was 3RD-LNG, third and long. And we had Mike on a lot, and Gary Padgett was a regular guest. And I think Gary's still floating around town doing something. He was always a go-getter. I really liked him. I think Mike Pagel had a really long career, primarily as a backup quarterback.
Backup, yeah. I think he went to the Browns maybe or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then over the years, we had Reggie on an almost weekly basis. Peyton Manning was kind enough to come in here. And I don't know if you ever heard this. This is the most amazing thing to me. Peyton Manning is such a great human being.
Yeah.
I know everyone knows he's successful, and they always go, what's he really like? I can tell you two stories. When Peyton was first signed, Bob and I were down at, I guess it was Market Square Arena, and we were judging some weird, I don't know, college slam dunk thing or whatever. And I was kind of nervous about it, and I was in the preparation area, and I had a bottle of water, and I was in the corner just looking at the corner by myself because I didn't really know all these guys. And someone taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Peyton Manning." That'd be sort of like you're walking down the street, a guy comes up, "Hi, I'm President Trump, and this is my friend Barack Obama." Yeah, of course, Peyton. But the other thing about it, and this may have even happened to you, this was an earlier time for cell phones, but it was a flip phone, and I was in my kitchen, and my phone rang, and I forget what they used to say, something like unknown number or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't answer it. Well, then it rang again. And this was before I knew what spam was. Anyway, so I answered it, and it was, "Hey, Tom, it's Peyton." Oh, and he goes, this is when Peyton was leaving. He was leaving town, and he was, going to obviously go on to do some great things in Denver. And he goes, "I just want to say thanks for letting me associate with you and your show and for treating me so well." Gary, you and I both know nobody does that.
Yeah.
Nobody does that ever.
Yeah.
And that just shows you what a great guy he is. And I mean, obviously, he's going on to great things and always.
Yeah.
But he's a great human being, and he would bring his dad in, and we'd hook up with his brother and stuff. Just a really cool person. And you could say the downtown, he built that stadium down there.
In April of 2022, we caught up with Tom's radio partner of 40-plus years, Bob Kevoian, who shared the story of how the two met in Petoskey, Michigan, and their encounter with Indy 500 champion Al Unser Jr. You got into radio kind of on accident?
Total fluke. I was working with a group called the Young Americans. They did summer stock in Petoskey, Michigan. And I did that for 4 years, just going there every summer and doing shows. And I was on the technical crew. And I just fell in love with the place and said, I'm staying here, so I better find work. And the first place I looked was WMBN in Petoskey, Michigan. I walked in and I said, "Do you need anyone to spin records for your DJs?" I said, "I'm pretty good technically." And the guy goes, "No, all of our DJs do that themselves. Would you be interested in being a DJ?" And I said, "Well, sure. What do I have to do?" And he, Gary Burlington was his name. Gary Buffington. Gary said, "Take this Associated Press news into the production room, read it, and give me the tape, and I'll give you a holler tomorrow. And I did that, and he called me the next day and said, you want to start working? I said, yes. And
wow.
I did 4 to midnight, a long 8-hour stretch.
I was going to say, that's a long shift. Yeah,
yeah, it is. Things got shorter as the career got longer. So, but that's where I started there. And then I met Tom a year later when I was tending bar in the evening.
Yeah, and hey, Bob, talk for those who haven't been to Petoskey. It's a beautiful part of the country, isn't it?
Petoskey Harbor Springs, right there on Little Traverse Bay. It's one of the most beautiful areas in the country, and I just fell in love with it. And it really is God's country up there.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Tom was up there, and again, that how you guys got and this whole thing came together. I think is an amazing story. How did you meet Tom, and what was he doing in Petoskey?
Well, his parents had a summer cottage there, so Tom was visiting his folks that summer, and I was tending bar. He had come in for a drink after a Jay Giles concert at a place called Castle Farms, and he ordered a CC and ginger ale. I remember that very well. And ended up just started talking radio, which came out. It was just weird. And the next thing you know, he goes, can I come to the station, look at the trades? I'm looking for work. And I said, sure, come on. You can come by tomorrow. I get in there at 10. He came in at 10. He saw my owner, general manager at 11. And by noon, he was my new program director.
Really? Wow. Yeah. That was fast.
It was very fast. And we became very good friends and roommates and then broadcast partners in a matter of a year.
Was it, people talk so much about chemistry and that kind of, did you guys just kind of hit it off or click instantly?
I think so. It was kind of a very quick friendship, and being roommates, we got to know each other pretty well. You got to know the guy's quirks. Well, what he was like, as a roommate. So it did click pretty quick.
Yeah, you guys on the air up there doing a little research. You were massively successful. You pulled some really huge numbers, right?
Yes, indeed. We actually had, I think, a 12 plus 44 share in our morning shift.
Wow.
We were getting all the advertising dollars. And our competitors made tapes of us, sent the tapes out to radio conventions, trying to get us hired out of the market. And that's how we ended up in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So someone got a hold of our tape. It got to a convention in Miami, and they played it for a bunch of program directors around the country. And we started getting phone calls, and we had no idea how they heard about us. And we were somewhat stunned. Next thing you know, we're going different states for interviews, and Indianapolis turned out to be the best choice.
Why Indy? What made you land on Indy?
I think the personnel that we talked with, they were wonderful people. Denny Rossman was our general manager at the time. Great guy, and he kind of I just guided us in, and it worked out. And I'm glad we found Indy to be a home.
Yeah. And what year was that? Was that 84?
83.
83.
Went on the air March 7th, 1983.
So you literally, I think it was a year later, right, that the Colts came to town.
Yes, it was kind of an interesting chemistry that we were kind of the new guys in town. Then the Colts came in. They were the new kids in town.
Yeah.
And their practice facility happened to be right down the street from the radio station, which was I think it was old Fall Creek Elementary School. It was an old
elementary school, right?
Yeah. So that was their, that was their practice facility. And next thing you know, we have Colts coming in and out of the radio station. Jimmy Irsay became a huge fan. And it just, everything clicked. And the next thing you know, our career started taking off. The Colts became hometown heroes. Hated in Baltimore, but loved here.
Yeah.
And it was I guess it was kind of a marriage made in Indy.
You mentioned Haji Dick Nixon. You can go on down the list. Did you have a favorite? Did you have a favorite character?
I always loved Jay Baker's Dick Nixon because it didn't sound like Dick Nixon, which is half the fun. I've loved all of the people that helped us. Some continue to work. Some have gone different paths, and it's an interesting medium to.
Yeah,
as you say, we would always mention don't break the wall. Keep the people guessing. That's why I wasn't really a big fan of when TV cameras came into the studio. I think kind of disrupted.
I was interested about that. Did you feel it kind of took away a little bit? Maybe?
Yeah, I think it did because people have this imagination of what it looks like in there, and then when you see what it is, you're going, well, that's kind of boring.
Yeah,
but it is what it is. A lot of people do it now, but I am still one of those. I love the radio and the magic of radio, and you can create a scene and let them make it all happen in their brain.
Yeah. One thing that always amazed me about you guys is because it's one thing to be funny for a week or a month or a year. I mean, you've got to continue to stay relevant, to be funny. How did you do that? I mean,
the best part about it is you're doing it with 4 or 5 friends that you enjoy hanging out with, and the ultimate goal is to make the other person laugh. Tom and I would never write stuff together. I would write with my buddy Whit Grayson, and Tom would write with his guy Ricky Rydell, and we'd create these things. And then, as it was presented on air, either I had not heard it before or Tom had not heard it before. This way, you get the absolute genuine laugh.
Yeah,
and a genuine laugh transmits much better than a laugh that's faked.
Yeah, so it was almost a competition. You wanted to make
absolutely. Very much so. It's like I know Tom's going to just piss himself when he hears this, and that's what you dream of. And Tom, same thing. He would sit there hoping to get the genuine laugh, and I think that was part of our success. Instead of us sitting down and writing everything together, we did it separately, and I think it paid off.
Yeah, such a big hit here in Indianapolis, and ultimately you syndicated around the country. I think in the mid '90s, maybe '95.
Started in '95. Yeah, we got up to like 150 affiliates.
Wow,
we were riding on top of the wave.
Yeah. What was that like? As you got more and more stations on board, and you really became a dynamo.
For us, it wasn't any different. We were still the core 4 inside the studio, looking at each other, not realizing who's listening or where they're listening. Well, that happened one morning. We were doing a giveaway. We're giving a car away, and we had a bunch of entries, and all the entries were thrown into the trunk of the car. And we were going to drive around all morning. When the car ran out of gas, pop the trunk, pull out a winner's name. Well, it turned out we were on 465, getting ready to get on to 70. And it was still a little dark. And we said, hey, if you're listening to the show, blink your lights. And the whole freeway started blinking lights. And it's like, we were somewhat stunned. We had no idea that many people were listening to us.
Yeah.
And that was the morning that we ended up going over to the Speedway, found Unser Jr. He pushed us out of the front seat of the car, took over the wheel, got onto the Speedway.
Oh my gosh.
Took us for 2 hot laps and a Mercury.
You are kidding me.
No. And we're broadcasting the whole time, and we get flagged down by a yellow shirt. They're ready to throw us, honest to God, into jail. And little Al rolls down the window. He goes, hey, guys. And the guy goes, Al, what are you doing? He goes, I'm just taking Bob and Tom for a spin. He said, well, have a good day. And off we went. At the time, there was a Steak and Shake across from the racetrack.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
As soon as we pulled out of there, we ran out of gas just at that Steak and Shake. It would have been ideal had we run out of gas on the Speedway's main straightaway.
Yeah.
That would have made news. But we went her out, and that was a morning I won't forget.
Then there was our conversation with Kristi Lee. episode 13, back in 2021.
Yeah.
What do you remember about those early days? Because Bob and Tom obviously have become, over the years, just such an iconic duo. That show with all the cast of characters is just so a part of the radio business, if you will. What do you remember about the early days and starting off?
I'm probably going to get into a lot of trouble for saying this, but we started off in literally a studio the size of a closet. There was room for Bob at the control board, Tom on the other side, and the guests would have to come in and there would be a microphone like on the side of and there was no room for anyone else, like maybe 2 other people. It was so tiny. And both of the guys smoked at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Awful. And it was just silliness. The silly thing, I had never been exposed to that. You know, the Helium Mondays, and it was just crazy. And my job at that time, I would literally come in twice an hour and I would have, you'll relate to this. I would be in the newsroom working so hard and, you know, I'd have my little teletype and rewriting my stories and get my audio and having it all together. And I'd walk in and they would never get to the news. Okay.
You were all ready to go. You had your content, you had your stories.
Yeah. I was trying to be a journalist. They just wanted a sidekick. But, you know, they did finally let me do, and we did, you know, and then that evolved into just doing funnier bits and, you know, funnier news stories, which is obviously what we do now. But things really changed when we went into syndication. When the syndication started, that's when they said, you're going to sit in there with us all the time. And I went, what? So that's where that all changed. And it became more of a sidekick co-host, not just the news person anymore.
Yeah. What was this, in your view, the secret sauce that, you know, from those early beginnings into what it became? What was it, just the chemistry among everybody there? Or what do you think it was?
Oh, yeah. I think Bob and Tom are both some of the most creative individuals you'll ever meet. And their chemistry, the fact that we all had we knew our role. Like I was saying before we started the podcast, somebody said something, your producer did. And I go, yeah, I've made a career out of knowing when not to talk. So I think that was all part of that too. We all knew our roles. We all know where we are supposed to be and when we're supposed to be there. And just the sense of humor, the laugh, the fun. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else and getting paid what I get paid to do. I can't believe I get paid to do this. I really can't.
It's something I've always wondered, you know, being funny all the time, that's not an easy thing to do, especially early in the morning. What'd you do to get yourself ready to get on the air and really try to be entertaining and funny and conversational?
I think most of the preparation comes the day before. Like, I don't know about you, but I am always, I hate to say this, but I'm always on my computer now, like reading stories. And so when I come in the morning, I already really know what we're going to talk about. Because that's the other thing, that Tom and I have like an unwritten language. Like, we just know, I know stories that he'll want to do and he knows stories so we just know before we even get here. So I think that really helps the longevity and just knowing each other really well. It's funny you would say that because I literally get up at the last possible moment I can. And I
Right.
come into work. I don't even drink coffee till I get here. And I've never really been a morning person. I did TV news. I was working nights forever. But you just kind of start and you just get here and it's, you know, the lights are on and we don't have natural light in here. So it's always bright. It's like Vegas. You never know what time it is. So you just come in and it just, there's like I don't know. I can't, after 2 cups of coffee, that switch just flips and here we are.
And you're ready to go. Okay, Kristi, each podcast, we do what we call the 2-minute drill. So it's basically I ask a few quick questions, ask for your quick answers to these. So are you up for the task?
Do you have a beep button?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, here we go. Favorite way to relax?
Reading. Big
Okay,
reading.
fiction or nonfiction?
Both.
You have a favorite Indy 500 memory?
Yes. Easy. 9 years old, 1969. Mario Andretti was my favorite race driver, and he won the Indy 500, and he signed that little checkered flag of mine. And now to this day, I can say that we are friends, and it's just like one of the greatest things in my life. Yes.
Okay. Now, you have interacted and been in touch with a lot of really cool people, entertainers, celebrities. So I just want to really brief, I'm going to tick some off here. And I want you to just give me a quick 1-sentence description or what you remember or think about these folks. And we'll begin with Kid Rock.
Oh my gosh. Kid Rock came in and did a live day with us. And Tom was so nervous. He was the most scared I've ever seen him because he didn't know how it was going to go. And he was fabulous. He was fun to work with. The show was great. He made us all laugh. It was one of my favorite programs.
Very good. Dolly Parton.
She came in. I was 9 months pregnant with my second daughter, and she was supposed to stay one break. And she goes, "We're not leaving here until I name that baby." And we talked. She stayed the whole morning. She was lovely. She is the sweetest, most down home. Oh my gosh, I love her.
Yeah. Peter Frampton.
I knew you guys were going to do this. He's obviously my favorite musician, and that's probably been, next to the Mario thing, my second greatest love that I got to actually meet him. In fact, we were just on Twitter last night because it was his birthday, and he was so grateful that I had remembered, and he was so nice, and he's just the nicest man in rock and roll. I can't go on. I'll gush. I'm blushing.
Interesting. Yeah. Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy has been on the show a couple of times. He's very hard to understand. Tom and I got to be on stage with him at Market Square Arena dressed as monks in these robes. And all we can both remember is the huge zit that was on his back, which was so disgusting. And then when he came here the one time, he picked me up in the parking lot. I have a picture of that somewhere. I don't know where it was. I don't know why, but he carried me around in the parking lot. He's a weird dude.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, final one, Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent, he's been on our show 2 or 3 times too. He was with us live in Nashville one time at a club, and it was great. But the big one was out here in the field. We have a big field up next to the station, and we had potato guns out there for some reason. And he was all about shooting off these potato guns. And he is an awesome marksman. Let me just tell you.
Yeah, he's a big bow hunter, right?
Yes, and he could hit a target. I'm not good with distances, but he was stellar with the potato gun. That's all I got to say about that. Oh, unbelievable.
As a bank, PNC prides itself on being boring. But the truth is they couldn't be more excited to serve the dynamic Indianapolis community. For nearly 160 years, they've quietly toiled away to deliver brilliant results for their equally brilliant clients. They have dedicated PNC teams throughout the local area all ready to do the boring work to help you unlock your own brilliance. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. PNC Bank, National Association member FDIC.
We also caught up with 2 other Bob and Tom mainstays, Jimmy Mad Dog Matus and Pat Carlini. And you mentioned Bob and Tom when you were doing the weather. They started making fun of you. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I'm like, who are these guys? They're making fun. There's a girl doing the weather. And so they invited me. They called the station. They invited me over to the radio station, and they wanted to meet me. So I said, well, okay. I didn't really know much about them. And so I drove over, and I get there. They weren't there. And I said so I think the general manager, they thought I was feisty. I go, I don't have time for this. I'm new here. I've got a new job. I don't even know who these guys are. They're wasting my time. Drive over here. And so I guess that guy, the general manager, went back to Bob and Tom and said, hey, she's pretty funny. Maybe you should invite her over.
Uh-huh.
And so then they invited me back, and I went over and met them. And it's like, okay, they're kind of cool. And I would do the weather on the phone at first, some. And then they said, this is kind of fun. Why don't you come into the studio? It's like, well, okay. So I leave the news at the station and I drive over to the radio station. And
so you would have gotten off the air in the morning on the early news, right? Sunrise. Yeah. And then you go over there.
So like 7 a.m. I'm driving over there, put up with them for a couple hours. And then, and Channel 13 was nice. They let me play that role so that I could, as long as I was back for the noon show, that's all they cared about. So wow. They played around and I came back for the noon show. But so that's how, and then they're like, oh, we just would rather have you here. And then it kind of just morphed into more than just the weather. I was part of the show, Yeah.
What was talk about what that's like? Because that's radio is not. People think, oh, yeah, radio, you're just sitting there talking, but it's challenging. It's a challenging job. You want to be, your timing, the way you interact with others. What was it like working with Bob and Tom? And that was back in certainly their heyday, right?
Yes, I think that definitely was. The 90s was their heyday.
Yeah.
And it is hard because, like you said, timing is everything. Yeah. And that makes a big difference. But what was interesting was, like, especially Tom kind of ran everything, Bob was the funny guy along the way. But Tom didn't want to discuss anything before you go on the air. So your questions and stuff, no, you did ask on the air. And I go, well, I got to ask you about how we're going to do it on the air. Okay. So nobody talked off the air. Isn't that funny? And you got on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when all the goofy stuff happened because we couldn't get things straight off the air. But he didn't want it to be an organized type of thing. It's just funnier to just do it all on the air. So after a while, I would just walk in and I thought, well, whatever happens, happens. And that's kind of how they wanted it.
Yeah. Well, describe it. We've had, or I've had on the podcast, a number of the Bob and Tom crew over the last several months on the podcast talking about things. What was that like, the atmosphere in the studio? Because they really created something that was obviously wildly popular here and that became national. What was it like in studio? What do you remember? Any in particular funny moments you remember?
Well, and it's fun because there was a few of us. So sometimes you do a radio show with just the main DJ, but there was Chick, obviously, Kristi Lee. Then we had sports people coming and going, and usually a comedian guest.
Yeah.
And the comedian would try to, do their thing, and then Bob and Tom would interrupt them. And so it's kind of the just watching the whole thing was funny enough. And that you just kind of jump in when you can. And some people I think would just be really taken back by it. You have to kind of be a little crazy to be part of that show. You just kind of have to play along because someone would not be able to fly with that. And that's what they wanted. They didn't want it to be for everybody.
Think back to the Q95 days, Doug. I mean, what a ride at that station, and such a powerhouse. I know there's so many different ways I can go with this, I guess, but I just, what, as you think back on that, on your tenure there, nearly a quarter of a century, what's your favorite memory or favorite memories of that time?
So it was really a time when everything happened at the right time, right? B&T, Bob and Tom, they got here in 83, Colts in 84. I got with them in 85. Downtown was exploding with the sports bar and Ike and Jonesy's and all that.
Yep.
And they had got so popular that if you weren't listening to the Bob and Tom show, you didn't know what your buddies were talking about the rest of the day, right?
Right.
And if they said, we're going to hang out at this place tonight at 6:00, that place was going to be packed. So just showing up at those places but the most fun for me was after the show, we'd usually go out to lunch somewhere close and write bits, right? Try to crack each other up. And a lot of the great songs and jokes and that sort of thing that those guys did are on the back at placemats that you're, stealing and writing on the back of, and then go back and record it. But, I was just really lucky. I was at the Downtown Comedy Connection in 85, and Bob just happened to come in, see a show. He thought I was funny, and he brought Tom in on Saturday, and they asked me to do their show on Thursday. 2 or 3 weeks later, they offered me a job.
Wow.
I didn't apply there, didn't send them a tape, just right place, right time with the right stuff.
So they knew they liked you right off the bat.
Well, I think I was an acquired taste to Tom, but me and Bob got along very quickly.
What, back to what you were talking about after the show and writing those bits, it was so funny, so creative. What were those lunches like after the show and putting those things together?
I think even during the show, it was almost like you're just showing up in your buddy's basement and you're getting ready to play poker and everybody's just telling jokes, trying to crack the other guy up. By 10 minutes into the show, you forget you're on the radio. You're just trying to make the room laugh, right?
Oh.
And then since there's so many funny guys there, somebody else is going to have the next line, right?
Yep.
And then somebody else is going to have another line, and somebody's thinking about that. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that people that are funny, that do what they do, you really have to be a good listener because you're trying to pick up on what you can make fun of next.
Right.
Right. And so you really have to be on your toes to be listening to come up with that next line.
What was it like? I used to think about you guys because you were so funny for so long, so consistently. And I used to think, man, that's got to be tough day in, day out, week in, week out to do it. Did it ever get to be a grind and, what we're going to do today?
Well, everything's a job at some point in time, but normally not on the air, right? I think it was like, I mean, you played ball. It's like practices weren't always fun.
Right.
But boy, the game was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And so, and when we got on the air, that was the game. But like anything else, we all had families and lives and that sort of thing. So you're trying to keep everybody happy. So, it's like anything else. There's going to be some things, but not when you got on the air.
Did it surprise as things started to take off? Because that show obviously did take off in a big way. Did it surprise you, or what were you thinking? Is this like a snowball going downhill? Man, it seemed to pick up momentum and such a following, such a huge following.
I think like most things, like most bands, we were just doing it because it was fun to do, and they were writing us a check to do it, and we got to do a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
Because of it, I don't think, or at least I never got a great deal of thought. I never realized that life was this long because I was just worried about Saturday. And I think it was the same thing for most of us when we were on the air. Now when you got home, you had family and you had to get to this game or you're coaching this team and that sort of thing. But I think that's what made it fun.
Yeah. What people always, and I'm sure they ask you, or they want to ask you about others on the team. Well, give me your take, maybe a couple sentences on Bob as an example. You said you and he.
Bob
right away.
Bob and I were the closest. We were a lot alike, shared a lot of the same personality traits. I still to this day, I got to spend a weekend with him a month ago or so. We went to Cincinnati when they were inducting Marty Brenneman into the Reds Hall of Fame. And so we got to spend the weekend with Marty, and I got to spend the weekend with Bob. And he's just, he's exactly how you would picture him, right? He's just, he likes to laugh.
Yep.
But it's not fake laughter. He just likes to laugh. So if it's funny, you got it. He's in. Chick might be the best pure radio guy I ever met. I mean, really? Chick, he's got the voice, he's got the delivery, he's got a great wit. He doesn't mind making fun of himself or taking it when others are dishing it.
Right.
And Kristi, she's just like the glue, right? I mean, she's there. We'll go on a million different tangents, or they'll go on a million different tangents. And then when that's been exhausted, Kristi better have a story, another topic. And she always does. She always does. And Kristi, it's just tremendous. And then Tom, nobody works harder than Tom. Nobody cares more than Tom.
He's still at it. Yeah.
He is. And dude, that show is still, it's still one of the best shows in the country. It just still is. And, but Tom is the guy, the driving force. The guy's always thinking about what's next and what can we do. And that sort of thing. And, that's hard for that group to be together for so long. That's not an easy thing to do. And boy, they've done it well.
In April of 2022, we spoke with Bob and Tom alum, the multi-talented Mark Patrick, whose impersonations of Howard Cosell, Marge Schott, and Warren Peace left an indelible mark.
Dickie Dick, I just wanted to announce that Larry Edwards won the contest we just had.
What was the contest?
I didn't mean to interrupt in your program because it's not a very manly thing to do, to interrupt someone like an ex-president.
That's true.
We did a little trivia thing, and Larry Edwards knew that Mike Reed, the former big old hunk that was the defensive tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals, left the NFL not to do the usual thing, which is, I think, hang out at bars and say, I used to play at the NFL. I think my championship ring's underneath the bar here. The thing you like to say, Dickie Dick. But he left to become one of my favorite professions.
And what was that?
A pianist. And
Mark Patrick, now retired, enjoying life with his wife, Pam, living in the mountains of South Carolina.
We found a foreclosure just across the state line in South Carolina in the mountains and decided to pull the trigger on that. Everything's worked out. So we've been here for over 7 years.
And you're in a beautiful spot of the country. And something I didn't know about you, you're multi-talented. You and Pam have kind of renovated the place, right?
Yeah, did basically about every room in the house. And then built on an additional 2-car garage that's my Hoosiers garage. It's got a bath.
Tell me about that. I've seen that. Describe that.
I raised the ceiling so that you could shoot essentially a 3-pointer. And I have an adjustable goal in there so that the grandkids can shoot at the lower goals, but Pop can shoot at 10 feet still. Then I finished it all. Bottom 4 feet are in stone and brick. And then the rest of it, the ceiling and all the walls, wall to wall, every inch is from a barn that was in West Memphis, Arkansas, that was built in 1912. And then I put up a Hoosiers poster that's autographed. And my son Drew got me an autographed picture of the Milan team that is in there. And I put 1954 state champs above that. And then I got a scoreboard from Carmichael Auditorium, which is
wow.
Atlanta played, before they went to the Dean Dome. So it's got a lot of really cool feel to it, I think. Kind of, and I call it my Hoosiers barn.
If James Brown was the hardest working man in show business, you were the hardest working man in broadcasting, because you were a key player on the Bob and Tom show for so many years, sports director at Wish TV, host of the Hoosier Lottery show for many, many years, had your own radio show. What do you remember most? Did you ever sleep?
I had a very defined sleep schedule. I would get into Bob and Tom about 5:30. And with Bob and Tom, at one point, I had 10 other stations around the country that I was also calling. So I would do things with Bob and Tom during breaks, go in and call another station in Detroit, Columbus, Sacramento, Scranton, Milwaukee, Raleigh. I had 10 at one point that I was just calling in bits, maybe 10-minute segments. And then I would get done with Bob and Tom, go home and try and do things that, I needed to do around the house. And then every day at 12:30, I would work out. And I'd run at noon and then work out. So it was very defined. And then I would go to Channel 8, 2:30, 3 o'clock, do the 5 and 6. And then I actually had it in my contract that I could go home for dinner, because I was very big on, as you know, seeing Little League games, seeing junior basketball games. And if there was not a game or a practice, then Drew and I would go out in the front yard, and I'd play catch with him in my shirt and tie. Yeah. And then go back in and do the late, and then get home 11:30. When I got off Channel 8, I would get in my truck and I would turn off the radio. And then I would just decompress from the day on the drive home.
Yeah.
Right. And then by the time I got home, I was ready to go to sleep. I felt like I didn't have anything going through my head at that point. And I get to sleep about 12:15 or so. And then I got up at 5.
Wow.
And start over. And then on Fridays, after I got done with Bob and Tom, I would go tape the lottery show. So I had Bob and Tom, all the calls, the lottery show. And then Fridays at Channel 8 were really bad because it's high school football or basketball. So I was generally live somewhere at 5 and 6. Then you cover a game, and then you try and that was predated what the technology is now so much. We relied on that telephone to ring and for people to tell us what the score was so that we could get it. So those were long Fridays.
You went to Ball State, right? When did you get get the bug that you wanted to be in broadcasting, or is that what you majored in? Communications, broadcasting, Ball State?
As you know, growing up, the question was, Gary, whether I was going to play professional football, basketball, or baseball.
Of course. Yeah.
I knew I would have to make some sort of decision. And so as soon as I figured out that wasn't going to happen, I actually thought I was going to be I can remember freshman or sophomore year in high school, you had to fill out, what are you going to do in 10 years? And I remember putting down doctor. And then I had to take my first biology class. And as soon as we cut into that frog, I said, all right, well, this isn't going to happen. We got to figure out something else to do to make money where you don't have to work. So I was 16, and I remember calling. I heard Buster Bodine. I was outside. My dad was making me do something. And I was actually working. I think I was pulling weeds. And I was listening to Buster Bodine. And he gave the request line number. This is funny. I got a funny thought. So I called and it rang literally 100 times. And then when he picked up, I got this. It was the weirdest thing. I wanted to hang up. You hear it ring so many times. And then, and then he goes, WNAP. You're like, wow, this is Buster Bodine. I better hang up. But I didn't. I just launched into this Dick Nixon impression. And he's laughing. And he's like playing along. So I'm like, because I'd been on the phone so long, I'm like, is this on the radio? I don't know. I didn't know how anything worked.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly didn't have any of those classes at Brownsburg. And so got done with it. He's laughing and, he's like, thank you, Mr. President. And he hangs up. So I'm like, wow, that was weird. And so I go back and I'm working and it was probably an hour later. My neighbor comes running out of his house and he says, hey man, you were just on the radio. I said, what? Buster Bodine just had you on the radio. I was like, wow. And because I didn't understand the concept of taping, and putting on all that. So then I'm like, oh wow, that was cool. I've got people that know I was on the radio. So the next time I called him, he goes, hey man, I need your number. And so I said, oh, okay. So I gave him my phone number, and then they started calling me for, just to do voices on promos, different things. And then I would call in the morning show some with, Bruce Munson and Chris Connor, Tom Cochran. They were so huge.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I'm on the morning show on WNAP. And it was crazy. And then I went to college, and by my junior year, I was actually doing mornings with Chris Connor, Ron Bilo, and Ann Craig for a summer. And then,
wow. Yeah.
So it was, and then I was like, okay, well, this is what I need to do.
Circling back now to Tom Griswold and what he sees ahead.
Tom, what's next? How much longer do you want to keep doing this? You've obviously got a lot of energy. You've got the passion for what you do still. What's the outlook for Tom Griswold?
Yeah, I love doing this. And I still have some young kids. I've got a freshman at IU. I've got a 9-year-old and a almost 13-year-old. And but I do love doing this. And I love this town. I love my neighborhood. I love the concerts and the comedians and the venues and the sports. I went to a WNBA game. It was so awesome. And then I went to the Pacer game. By the way, they won the one I went to. I think I'm a good luck charm.
Yeah.
And of course, I was just at the Colts game a couple of weeks ago. And by the way, I'd like to congratulate Capitol Avenue. I was walking down Capitol Avenue from the Capitol. The wind was blowing, and one of my daughters and I go, it can't be this cold. The good news is, on the way back, the wind will be blowing at our backs. Well, apparently at halftime, the weather gods had a different idea. Walking back, I almost froze. No, but I love it here, and I love what I do. And we have contracts running already for the next couple of years. So we're going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. I really enjoy it. I'm not good at going on vacation. I don't play golf. So I'm going to do this as long as I can. My goal is to make it to at least 50 years. I'm about to begin year 46. So I'm going to keep going.
Good.
I enjoy it. This is fun.
Chick McGee, if you're listening, we're coming for you next. Again, you can listen to all 250-plus episodes of the Business and Beyond podcast on applepodcasts.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.